Hi there, Ariel and David, Jaime, Tal, Danielle, Leah, and Maya. So the interesting topic is covered in part in this week's Midrash, and that is, do you ever wonder what it's going to look like at the end of days? What does that picture look like when God's presence is revealed to the world? What are the ground rules? What is it? What could we expect? So the Midrash first of all lays down one rule, and that is it's not going to happen all at once. It would be too much for mankind to behold God's presence in its entirety at one time. And it learns it out, interestingly, from the story of Joseph. As you know, that the brothers sold Joseph into Egypt. They thought he was dead. And then when they went down to get food, the viceroy of Egypt, who was Joseph, was disguised as an Egyptian. He did not let his brothers know that it was really him, and he gave his brothers a tough time to see if their loyalties had changed. And finally, at the end, in the dramatic reveal, he says, "I am Joseph, your brother. Is my father still alive?" And the brothers were so shocked because they thought that he was dead. And it says that they couldn't even answer him. And the Midrash takes that literally to mean they died. They couldn't answer him, and had to be revived. So the Midrash takes from that story that sometimes it's too much to reveal everything at once, and the Midrash says it will happen slowly. And in beautiful, the Talmud, in the Jerusalem Talmud, actually says it's going to be like the early rays of dawn. That's the way it's going to manifest itself. So, okay, any other signs? So the Midrash actually mentions a sign that sounds suspiciously like something that David Ben-Gurion said. The Midrash talks about the desert being joyful and blooming. There's only one difference, though. There's sort of an inherent built-in test in that. In other words, if you look at the desert bloom and you say, wow, those early pioneers worked so hard, their sweat and tears is what made the desert bloom, then you didn't see anything. You didn't see any sign. But if you looked at those early pioneers and you said, wow, they worked so hard and there was sweat and tears, and with God's help, God chose to manifest himself in the slightest way through their work by making the desert bloom, then you saw something. And another interesting aspect of the desert blooming is the fact that it didn't bloom for anybody else. All the major world powers that marched through the Middle East, nobody, including the Babylonia and the Greek Assyrians and the Romans and the Crusaders, nobody was able to make the desert bloom. In fact, the Torah predicts, at the same time of predicting our exile, also predicts that the land will wait for us. And of course, there's a famous quote by Mark Twain from about 150 years ago, in which he describes his trip through Palestine, and he says, "It's a hopeless, dreary, heartbroken land. Palestine sits in sackcloth and ashes, desolate and unlovely." Of course, part of that is a quote from Echa, which we're going to read on Sunday on Tisha B'Av. But there you have it. Nobody was able to settle the land. And the interesting thing is that the other signs that some of the commentaries say are that there's going to be complete Jewish unity, which perhaps is not here yet, and respect for Torah scholars, that's perhaps not here yet. But it doesn't mean that the beginnings aren't starting. And I would even question whether the fact that we're even here after 2,000 years, that we have sovereignty in the land of Israel, isn't that something? Can't we already say that the first signs of light are appearing over the horizon? You could even look at high tech and the advances of Israel in high tech and biotech, and that outstripped even huge European countries, and say there's another manifestation. I actually entitled the written version of this as the perfectly camouflaged return of God's presence. Why? Because in effect, if God was sort of hiding in the shadows and was manifesting his presence, the Shekhinah, in the amazing technological and biotechnological feats of Israel, everybody would miss it, because half the people would say, what are you talking about? That's just better engineers, smarter people, more innovative Israelis. And other people would say, are you kidding? God would manifest himself in some spiritual way, not in paraplegic starting to walk and taking water out of thin air. So everybody would miss it. And of course, that is something that God revels in. He wants to be found. He's hidden and he wants to be found. And so even these early signs of the return of the Shekhinah is something you have to work hard to find. I very much look forward to your comments and questions and challenges. Have a great Shabbat. Love you all. Bye-bye.